rotoshapes. So just like before, we'll draw the shape, link it to the adjusted track, feather the edge, and add a few keyframes to the shape until it holds throughout the duration of the shot. And just in case you're wondering why we have to keyframe our rotoshapes at all, it's simply because our track is an approximation. The rocks that we tracked are not in fact the same distance from the camera, so a little adjustment's needed to compensate for the individual shifts. But I guarantee you, this is worlds faster than trying to do it in After Effects on its own. So now that you have the general idea, I'm going to jump this thing into hyperdrive and show you how I arrived at my finished roto just to save time. Basically, I created several rotoshapes, one for each major group of rocks, and then linked them to the background track, and then created one more rotoshape to hold out the foreground. Looks great. Now that we have our rotoscoping complete, let's get our data out of Mocha and into After Effects. Let's begin with the shape data. So selecting any of our rotoshapes, making sure the track tab is selected in the bottom of the interface, click on the Export Shape Data button. Now we can select the format, export type, and how we want to exchange our information. Since we turned off the visibility of our background track layer, let's choose All Visible Layers, and then click Copy to Clipboard. If you want to save the output shape data as a file, you could click the Save button and save it anywhere you'd like. Now, flipping over into After Effects, I have the still footage loaded into a composition, and all we need to do is paste in our roto data. Making sure the playhead is parked at the first frame, select the layer, and paste in the data using Edit, Paste. Now, just like in Mocha, we have our rotoshapes cutting out our footage using several instances of the Mocha Shape plugin. One for each roto layer we had linked to the background track layer. Alright, this is looking good. So now pressing F3 to bring up the Effect Controls palette, let's take a quick tour of the plugin's interface. Blend Mode. This affects how the rotoshape interacts with the other layers. Multiply is the default for the first layer, and Add is the default for all subsequent instances. But you could choose to switch this up if you wanted to do a reverse cutout or something of that nature. Similarly, Invert inverts the effect of the shape on the footage. Render Edge Width. This toggles the visibility of the edge width property specified in Mocha. If you want your feathering to come through, make sure this is activated. Render Type. Shape Cutout cuts out the shape and affects the alpha channel only. Color Composite Colors. In this mode, the rotoshape is tinted with the color and opacity values specified below. This might be nice for colorizing an object in your shot, or displaying your mattes in a before and after type of demonstration. Color Shape Cutout. This displays the shape as a black and white image. This mode could be useful if you want to use the shape as a travel matte or luma matte for another layer. Now that we have our cutouts in place, we still have to do something about our sky. We could take our background shot here and drop it into our composition, which I'll do now, but without the tracking data, it just sort of looks fake. Really fake. So back in Mocha, let's select our background track layer and get our tracking data into After Effects. Nearly identical to the shape data export process, click on the Track tab, or Adjust Track tab if you adjusted your track, and click on Export Tracking Data. In the Format pull-down, we get a couple options. After Effects Transform Data. Use this if you're taking your data to a null. After Effects Corner Pin Data. Use this if you're using After Effects CS3 or earlier. And After Effects CS4 Corner Pin Data if you're using CS4. We'll choose After Effects Transform Data and click Copy to Clipboard. Again, if you wanted to save out the tracking data as a permanent reference, you could also choose to save it as a text file. We'll just choose Copy to Clipboard for now. So at the very beginning frame of the composition, let's go Layer, New, Null Object, and then paste our tracking data onto the null. Edit, Paste. Then select the layer and press Return on the keyboard to rename the null to Tracker. Pressing U on the keyboard reveals all of the data has come across just as we had expected. However, we actually won't be needing all of it. So let's click on the stopwatch for the anchor point and turn it off to get rid of the anchor point data. Now right-click on the property to reset the value to its default position. Now we have the body of the null following the path of our data. So now we can actually do something with our background image. And by the way, just to give credit where credit is due, I got this photo from my cousin Ross Damhoff, and he said I could use it. So scrubbing to the last frame of the composition, let's reposition Ross's background so that the right edge of the image lines up somewhere with the right edge of the frame. Now parent the image to the tracker null, and we can scale and position the image until it sits somewhere where we want it. Now the motion of the background matches the movement of the foreground. Next, we gotta do something about the colors of the background and foreground. Obviously, the seal footage is way too warm to fit in our alpine scene, so we'll have to apply some color correction to make it look convincing. Select the seal footage and go to Effect, Color Correction, Levels. What we want to do here is get each individual color channel in the foreground to match the distribution of the color levels in the background. So let's view each individual color channel in the composition by choosing it from the pop-out in the bottom of the composition window. Notice, when we're viewing our color channels in the composition window, a representative border is displayed in the viewer, just so we know what channel we're looking at. To activate the view for an individual color channel, you can access it from the keyboard by pressing Option 1, Option 2, or Option 3 on a Mac, or Alt 1, etc. if you're on a PC. Press the keyboard shortcut again to return to the RGB view. Now with the red channel displayed, let's go back to the Effect Controls palette and view the histogram of the red channel of the seal footage by choosing the red channel in the channel dropdown of the Levels command. So for the red channel, the black and white levels look pretty good, but the midtones look a little dark. So let's move the gamma of the red channel down a little bit to brighten it up. Now let's work on the green channel. So switch to the green channel in the viewer, that's Option or Alt 2, and then back in the Levels effect. Again, we'll see that the green channel of the source footage is too dark. This time, let's lower the white point and the gamma to level everything out. However, when making these adjustments, be careful not to clip any information out of your channel if you can help it. So we have to find a balance in between brightening up the image overall using the white point and changing the midtones with the gamma. There we go. Now for the blue channel. Obviously, there's very little blue in the original shot, so we'll really have to crunch down on the information here to get it to match the background plate. So again, let's lower the white point just before where it begins to clip, and then lower the gamma until the midtones are similar. Flipping through the color channels now, and then back to the RGB view, let's make some final color balance adjustments until we're happy with the results. That's looking a whole lot better. It's still looking a little too red in my opinion, so let's go to Effect, Color Correction, Tritone, and choose a blue color from the sky as a midtone. Drop the blend with original value until we cool the footage just a bit more, and I think we're looking pretty good there. To further push the color, let's add a gentle vignette to the comp. Layer, New, Solid, and choose a dark blue color. Next, choose the elliptical mask tool and draw a large mask on the layer. Essentially, what we want to do is darken the top and bottom of the comp, but not so much the sides. Now with the layer selected, press MM on the keyboard to reveal the mask properties, and change the masking mode to subtract. Then, change the feathering to about 160 pixels. Finally, let's change the composite mode of the layer to overlay, and turn the opacity down slightly. And now that I have the solid settings the way I'd like them, I'm just going to change the shape of the mask a little bit until I'm happy with what it does on the edges. Now after all that work, let's take a RAM preview and see how things are looking. Well, it's not bad, but it's still not quite right. Since this is supposed to be a $1 million wraparound helicopter shot, and not some footage that I shot in a boat, let's simulate some additional 3D parallax in the shot. If those mountains were really way off in the distance, they wouldn't be locked to our rocks in the background. Instead, they'd be moving in the opposite direction of the foreground and adding a whole lot more depth to the scene. So going to the beginning of our composition, let's select the background image and press A to reveal the anchor point property for the layer. Scrubbing the value back and forth, you can see that the anchor point can be animated to add in additional movement supplemental to the parenting that we already have on the position property. So let's grab the anchor point value to move the image over, set a keyframe, and then go to the end of the composition and do the same. Now we have some nice parallax going on that makes our shot much more convincing. As a final touch, select the background layer and activate the motion blur switch. Then turn on the global motion blur switch and let's do one more RAM preview. That looks great. Now when you put the two side by side, it's a pretty amazing transformation. So again, what's important to recognize here is that all of this compositing is built on the rock-solid tracking data that we were able to get out of Mocha for After Effects version 2. And I hope you've been able to see how Mocha can be an incredibly valuable addition to your toolset. So until next time, I'm Carl Larsen from Telescope Media Group, and on behalf of everyone at Imagineer Systems, thanks for watching.